I'm sure you're expecting me to very quickly dive into questions to the panel on the topic of continuous learning and how it is so important for making a future-ready organization. But I'll just do the reverse. Let me very quickly begin with some questions to the audience itself. Just raise your hand. These are easy questions. Okay, just raise your hands if you've recently seen the pictures which the NASA has released on the ancient galaxies and our universe. How many have seen it? Fantastic. Weren't they breathtaking? Okay, next question. How many of you have, after seeing that news, after seeing that picture, did you go to the NASA website to see more pictures? Fewer hands, but yes, it is there. Okay, third question. How many of you who saw this news later on felt that they need to Google some more about the topic on astronomy? How many of you did that? I'm not going to ask you a question. Don't worry, some technical question about it. Okay, let me ask an extreme question. How many of you actually set up a date with a physicist for this weekend to understand more about it? Okay, so thank you so much. I think I like the responses. What I was trying to sense was, the curiosity quotient. Okay, I think, I'm not saying, I think what I saw was an evidence of different people, depending on the interest, the level of interest they have on a topic, make different kinds of efforts when it comes to learning. So thank you so much for giving that sense to me. My guess is, all of us, we know that human beings are naturally curious. So ideally, frankly, there's no need to do a session on building a culture of learning or building a culture of continuous learning, because human beings are naturally, curious. We know when we see small children, how curious they are. It's absolutely beautiful seeing them, how they try to explore their world, touching, feeling, smelling, sometimes even tasting, just to understand what the world looks like, and they try to understand that. However, there is some research which says that when a child is 3 years old, it asks about 100 questions a day to his or her parents. However, by the time they reach the age of 11 years, most of it is gone. So I'm not sure. I think there's some critique of the education system which we heard in the morning session today. So school happens. I'm sure learning does not really stop in schools. Schools are all about learning. But I think one distinct thing which happens there is the incentives to learning change. The reasons why people learning are changed. Because people are learning because they want approvals, parental approval, teachers' approval. They want to crack an exam, or they want to compete, beat someone in the race, to get an entry, or score higher. So those changes are huge changes, which come when people realize that the incentives why they should be learning, that itself changes. And then after spending 16 years, 18 years, 20 years in education system, people end up entering the workforce armed with the degrees. Okay, they have the degrees, they meet some eligibility criteria. Many of them are smart enough to also have some first job skills, and they enter the system. But where they enter, especially the modern work environment, the expectations are very different. Everyone is giving them gyan on saying, you should be a problem solver, you should be creative, you should be an abstract thinker, you should be an innovator. All those things, come one after the other, in a modern work environment today, to an unsuspecting person who was as a child extremely curious and used to learn as a natural trait. But then that's what, schooling or, the later life did to the person. So this becomes a big challenge. And I think that's one reason where workplaces, need to rekindle that curiosity, need to literally bring that natural inclination to learn back. And there is, I don't want to quote too many statistics and all that, you've heard a lot, but there is research which says that organizations with a great learning culture, great culture of continuous learning, they're also seen as organizations which are bringing new and new products, to the market. They are more responsive. Everyone is talking about customers. They are far more customer responsive. So there are many of these, they are far more productive, they are far more innovative. So there is a correlation, between that culture and what they have achieved, in their businesses. But there is also, sadly, another research which says that there are very few organizations which can boast that they have a true culture of continuous learning. So with that, in mind, I think we have an amazing panel here today. HR leaders, people leaders who represent organizations who are leading in whichever sectors they are operating in. I'm very happy that we have multiple sectors being represented in a fairly balanced manner. So we'll actually go to them, okay, and ask what is it in terms of cultivating a culture of learning. There are lessons and ideas that they have for us, but I think I would like to start with a very basic question. And Ranjan, this is for you. Uh, because something which becomes a buzzword is also sometimes, misunderstood. So my basic, first question to you is, what exactly do you mean by a culture of continuous learning? What are those, telltale signs that people in an organization has that kind of culture? Is it happening, having some LMS or having some AR, VR, or some kind of a new gizmo, for learning being present there? So what are those telltale signs, and how do you really fuel up? I know you're from Indian Oil. So how do you really fuel up this culture is something it'll be great if you could just share with the audience.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you. As you spoke about fuel up, I rather, without this part of it, the other part of it, I would request everybody to go to the nearest retail outlet and fill up their tanks. So that comes very naturally to me by being a business person. So anyway, thanks a lot. First of all, let me be very clear. I think this culture of continuous learning is not a new word. I think probably it was always there. And you're asking those 4 questions has stumped everybody. They have realized what exactly is lacking. So that is one part of it. Second part of it is that when we are talking about it, if you want to know that, that this has to be visible at every part of your company or a part of your organization. So I will straightway go to the telltale signs. I know we all know there are a lot of studies which are going on, and it has been more pronounced during these COVID times. We knew that those companies which had great culture of learning or continuous learning, they have succeeded. They have adapted to the changes which has happened. So if I go straight to the telltale signs, I look at it in 3 ways. One is what your leaders are talking. Second thing, what your organization people, the people at the ground level are how they are speaking. It's all conversation. And then what are those factors which is combining both the leaders and the entire people in your organization? So what are those enablers which are available? You spoke about 1 or 2, but I'm telling what are those things which are available. So let's say for my organization, we know we had this one which I will speak later if I get a chance. Then Swadhyay, e-learning, which we had started before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, it went to out of proportion. And we saw that is bringing in this culture of continuous learning. So I rest with that. I'm very conscious about timing, so I rest with that.
Thank you so much.
I'll just be a little provocative here. I think just to add what Ranjan has alluded to, for me, a big sign is going to be whether learning is embedded in the DNA of your organization, which means we have stopped clocking the number of hours, but we have actually started measuring what is the impact of our learning on customer satisfaction. So I'll just an extension of what Ranjan said. I thought I would add to that.
I think that's a great point. Niharika, but I had one more quick question for you. So at BITS Pilani, we work with several industry verticals, both with the employers as well as their employees. And as part of that, we keep on doing, we keep on commissioning research, both among the employers as well as employees to understand, where are these challenges coming up. In some of the work we have done, we have gone to employees, talking about all this change happening. What do they feel about it? So 3 things, which have really made me concerned when I've seen those results. One is a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed, and they're saying, while all these, terms and terminology of velocity, complexity, increasing and change really happening, but it is really overwhelming us. People all have fear of failing. People also have self-doubt that, we may not be able to even cope up. In fact, there is another factor that we have seen which is an opposite to self-doubt, we've also seen, misplaced confidence in what they already know. In fact, internally, at BITS, we've called it, being confidently incorrect. You may not know, but how do you, in a state like that, really transform, help these employees get into a different mindset where they start believing in themselves and also start believing in the power of learning, and they can still learn.
Thank you. And I love the phrase that you have coined. Um, I think what both Ranjan and you have alluded to is that change in the last 2 years, the magnitude of change has been immense. It has pervaded all our lives. So, if last couple of years we read theories about change, change management, transformation, we actually felt it in the last 2 years. And organizations which were able to adapt to this change, which were agile, which were resilient, and which were able to learn and relearn succeeded. In fact, if you just think about the industry, let's say, if we have to think about a small thing, goods and services, right? We were all used to going to a shop, buying our purchases. Well, it changed completely. How many of you actually go to the grocery stores now? You don't, right? Everything is online. Transformation has happened. I think all of us were used to going to a fitness place and going for gymming. It's all become online classes. So that means that people and organizations adapted very well in the recent past. And if I just have to reflect about Luminous, and I'll just talk a little bit about that, what helped us succeed, and just to share with all of you that last 2 years we automated our shop floors completely. Robotics is there, artificial intelligence is there. We also changed the way in which we did channel management, customer management, and you all are a testimony of it, right? None of you go to the grocery stores any longer. So we all had to transform, we all had to change. And I'm just going to leave you with 3 points which actually helped us really cement the growth mindset in our people and the learning culture there. One was to give people a safe space to fail. We are an R&D organization. We produce products. Not every product is successful. The only ask that we have of our people is that fail fast, and then move on. So that really helped. Second was to communicate. I think if you're able to communicate, the trust factor in the organization just grows from leap and bound, right? And we heard across all our people, and we firmly believe that a good idea can come from anyone. It doesn't matter about the hierarchy, but it can come from anyone. The third big thing that we did was upskilling and reskilling. I think there is no choice any longer. We can keep having a debate about it, but if we want to be relevant in the current times, if we want to embrace the future, there is no other way. So my only 2 bits is learn, and learn fast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think something which Niharika said is a good segue to my question, which is addressed to Harsh, to you. This is something which we are also talking outside, where the customers' needs are changing very fast. Niharika just talked about grocery store shopping becoming less of a habit and people are shopping online. That's not just true, for consumers, but I think customers of all kinds, whether they're enterprise customers, organizations as customers, or individual consumers. Now, in an environment where customer requirements and expectations are shifting so quickly, how should we really measure? Because people say that all the learning is happening to satisfy a customer. How should we really measure learning interventions from that aspect? And also, if we could just talk about the way upskilling should really change to address that.
So thanks, Rajiv. And firstly, I must say I'm very impressed. At 1:45, all of you are sitting in the room. Two very important questions that you asked. I represent a company that has 155,000 employees across 105 countries. So it's very complex as it is. But you raised a very important point. During the pandemic, we clearly saw that the customers, whichever industry you're in, right, even if you're selling cars or grocery, agility is what the customers expected. And they're looking at for us, we have 1,100 customers. They're looking at saying, okay, how are you going to be agile to fulfill my need? Because remember, during the pandemic, whatever you guys did, it was through the IT framework, right? And the pipeline was, whether it was police, whether it was paramilitary, whether it was defense, whether it was telecom, somebody had to set that up. And therefore, at Tech Mahindra, we've really changed the concept of learning. And I want to share it with you because I think it'll give you a different paradigm. We've always lived in a world where we measure man days and man hours and how many people got trained. For us, it's never measured because it's actually quite useless, because what's the point in measuring something if there is no impact on the employee and the customer? So the first thing that changed on measurement is at TechM, we only measure how many people were upskilled and built into a customer's scenario in a new skill at a different rate. Okay, so if you are, our jobs are, supplying people to sort of our customers, but it is basically engineers who got upskilled into a new technology and got built. At the same time, we said to our people and our associates that if you got built and you upskill yourself, we will increase your salary straight by 30% of whatever your bill rate is, which is huge. So that's the advantage for the employee to upskill. The second thing that we did on learning is we have a Coke model or a Coke machine where you say, you mix your own drink, you choose your own career. If you're in delivery, you want to get into sales. If you're in sales, you want to get into marketing. I had marketing, HR, and I couldn't barely spell marketing, right? But the fact is, then we provide you the tools through the best in the world to upskill. But then the onus is on you. So the onus has shifted. We've also clearly seen during the pandemic that, people are not going through this great resignation. It's the great reclamation, which means people are seeking their lives out. And you have to make sure that the careers are suitably taken up. On the upskilling bit, what you asked, I think today upskilling is very important. Upskilling is replacing, or at least, co-existing with actual formal learning. And even in India, I was with the skills development minister the other day, and they tell me that if you do certain skills, they actually award you a degree. So which means it is about real-time experience. And I would certainly urge that herding people in a room is not learning, because that is knowledge. It may not translate into competencies and skills. And at Tech Mahindra, we only measure competencies and skill enhancement. So a longish answer.
Thank you so much. Some great points. Harsh, since you've talked about, the IT space, and a lot of this is, related to white collar workers, knowledge workers, engineers who work in that space. I think there's a very logical question which is coming to my mind, and that goes directly to Dharm, who was the HR head for Hero MotoCorp. And we know that your company and leading players in your sector are now increasingly adopting, technology in the factory itself. So there is being talk about, digital manufacturing, smart factories, IoTs, more and more robots coming inside and working alongside the human beings. When we think of, old economy factories, we think of completely filled with blue collar workers. Now, in a environment like that, how would, learning initiatives, continuous learning would play out, specifically in the context of blue collar work? I'm really curious about it.
Thank you, Rajiv, for giving me the very interesting kind of a question. Because so far, learning and development, when we speak about, normally the white collar workforce is actually visualized. You forget that the larger piece of the people who are actually delivering the entire agenda for you, those are the blue collar workforce. And while being in the manufacturing sector, we are cognizant of that very fact. We recognize that aspect very well. This pandemic actually gave a lot of the disruptions to everyone, and that also disrupted our way of thinking, way of working, and way we deliver the learning and development for our blue collar workforce. That point of time, we started thinking that entire thing happens into 3 dimensions. Number 1 dimension is the time, second dimension is your space, and third dimension is your behavior. Okay? What is future for me, that may be a past for someone else. I will just give you the example, and that may be a presence for someone. For example, when we are talking about the AR, VR introduction of the smart factories, this is future in India. But you take the concept of context of the Russia, it is already the present kind of a things. But when you take the context of the Germany, it is a past kind of a things. So the space is changing, the time is changing, the whatever is the future for me, that is the past for someone. But the most important and most critical aspect of your success, that depends upon what kind of behavior you are displaying, whether you have a learnability is there or not there. During this very pandemic, what we realized is how we can fasten, how we can upskill, how we can reskill, because our old base of the working was completely changing. Okay, people are not available. People have the reverse migrations. People have gone back to the places. Then after it gave us the opportunity, okay, let's redesign our entire workplace. And people who are coming back to the industry, they are the first timers. They are moving into the inside the industry. How we are going to upskill them? How we are going to reskill them? Okay, we moved in the larger space of the digital bay, and we started utilizing the technology. And I am really happy to inform you guys, building kind of a technology which is a very, very sophisticated, unless until you are not putting your hands, you will never learn the building. We did it through the AR and VR technology. We created the simulations while the person was sitting at the home. At the same time, the person was learning. Okay, that's why we were transforming the entire way of our work design. We were also transforming the entire way of imparting knowledge and the learning to others. At the same time, what we also realized, that when you discuss about the individual learning and the group learning, okay, at the same time we see this thing, the group learning is very faster, where the individual learning versus the individual learning. So we also started having the group learning sessions, and very extensively started utilizing the robotics, AR, VR, digital kind of the platforms we used. We have now while you are on the move, you can also learn, because a lot of the contents, digital contents are available. And that's way, this is the reason that when after the pandemic, and moment we were given the opportunity to restart our factories, within 2 months' time, we not only ramped up, we had the highest ever productions, we had the highest ever sales, and we had the highest ever dispatch. And that happened because we transformed entire way of skilling our workforce, particularly the blue collar workforce. So that's my initial thought, Rajiv.
Thank you so much. Pradyumna, I'm coming to the last, okay, but with a question everyone will relate to. Because there is this whole belief in continuing learning. Nobody denies that is something which is needed. But I'm sure deep inside, when we reflect on it, we think of that there are challenges. Some things which really impedes the proliferation of this culture in an organization. So would you be kind enough to tell us what you think are those challenges?
See, a strong culture of continuous learning, I think it refers to an ability of change of individual as well as organization. And that change is for being more effective and be better than what we were yesterday. And when we talk about change, it is also to embrace a discomfort of, I think, letting go what we know, and also mastering something what we need to handle the challenges of future. As there is change is here, so change resistance comes as a barrier for creating a learning culture in the organization. Now, why this resistance is there? One is for sure, everybody feels that any change we resist, whether it is for our betterment, there is a resistance for change. But in organization, if we talk about change, resistance to change, it is somewhere as an organization we fail to talk about, to share with the employees what is our plan, what is the big picture and how they can contribute towards that big picture. If we fail as an organization to do so, that brings that resistance, because as an employee, we don't know where we can contribute towards that big picture. The first thing, therefore, to tackle this is very important. Once you create your own strategic plan, please go back and share with your employees. Those cascading and communication on the strategic business plan becomes very important to create this environment where an individual has an agenda for learning. That becomes important. Second, the one aspect that for learning is important is somewhere a discipline driven by process and system in the organization. When we talk about discipline driven by process and systems, definitely we need to have certain infrastructure in place. We need to have certain supportive system for learning and development. And there comes the second resistance, that we have always shortage of resources. And as an organization, if you are not able to understand the importance of learning, and we have not observed that whenever there is a budget cut, the first thing which we cut is the learning budget, the training budget. So as HR, we need to put our foot down and say that this is the last thing we are going to surrender. That becomes important, and that takes the commitment towards learning and development. But the most important thing, which I feel that in an organization which is the biggest barrier or impediment, is the commitment of leadership itself. As a leader, our commitment towards learning, creating a learning culture becomes very important, because I always feel that a motivation driven by leadership behavior is the foundation for creating a learning organization. Even as a leader, I will say that I can nurture a learning organization, learning strategy in the organization by saying that whether I am able to challenge my own best thinking or not. That becomes important, whether you are giving that opportunity to people in the organization to make them a devil's advocate, to see that they are able to challenge your assumptions. That becomes important in the organization, whether people are able to challenge the assumptions. And that brings a diverse information, diverse opinion, diverse perspective in your organization. And that creates a learning organization. That creates how we can take our learning agenda ahead. So this, I think, the most important is how we can do an environment where people can feel that they are part of a big picture and then contribute towards the strategic goal. And when this point comes in their mind, definitely they will put their efforts to learn new things. Thank you.
There were some great points, Pradyumna. There is just one point on which I'll hold you up someday. You know, in the age of prosperity, learning budgets always expand. When things become tough, they are cut down. So this is something which we have to always remember when we're thinking of learning budgets. We meet the HR and we hear that. So I completely resonate with that. Ranjan, I know you're also looking at the clock. I am also doing that. So I have one more question for you before we also want to give opportunity to the audience to ask questions. This is specifically about your sector, Ranjan. You are Indian Oil, okay, a dominating big name in the energy sector. But we also know that the fossil fuel and the whole shift towards greener energies, other options, which is under works in almost all energy companies. So tell me, when such a big change happens in such a well-established old organization, a complete movement towards a very different source of doing business, what kind of impact does it have on, should it have on the mindsets as well as from a learning perspective? So you could just give your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Thank you. I think what others have also spoken about, change has become the most essential thing these days, and the transition which is taking place from fossil fuel to other energy. In fact, this has been mammoth. I think it was there, it was happening, but I think probably during the pandemic and with all these crude prices going up to 140 and all, it has become more, aptly fastened. So I have a solution. What we have been doing, I'm giving an acronym for that, my 3D: diagnose, develop, and deliver. So what you have to do, you have to diagnose what exactly is the skill gap, which Harsh was telling, even Dharm was speaking about, that what exactly is the skill gap which is existing in your company. So this is where we have to be in this area. If we are talking of hydrogen as the fuel for future, are my people ready with that? So what is that? So for that, a lot of activities has been done individually by the organization. And as HSSC, this Hydrocarbon Skill Sector Council, we have also done a lot of work on that. Then you have to develop the things which will be adapted by your people. And that's more important. And one more thing, I think I'll add to agility, which Harsh told. Adaptability is one thing which we all saw very important during this period. All those organizations which adapted to the changes which is happening succeeded. I think that's, and this is where we have to develop the system which can be adapted by your own people. And the last one is, how are you delivering? How are you exercising? She spoke about the communication. I add to that one more thing, that every communication has to be authentic. So all these things that you are developing, suppose we developed a Swadhyaya model, or we develop a program for the coaching for our people, or we developed on mentoring with both mentoring and reverse mentoring. But how are you delivering it to people? How your last mile is reaping the benefits of whatever you are developing? That's extremely important for us. So for me, this 3D. Thank you very much.
No, thanks so much for a three-dimensional, answer. Thank you. I think we have a few seconds more on the clock, and we must utilize it as optimally as is possible. So if there are questions from the audience, we'll just take it. Could just help with the mic, please? Yeah.
Coming in, do you have a model from the industry to help these people join industry? Because the ministry is already supporting us. Maybe some kind of model from your side.
Can I answer? What was his question? Let me repeat the question also.
Yes,
He's from armed forces. They have a large contingent of people who are in the armed forces. Even the government is supporting of their reskilling as well as making them ready for the future as well. So how others can support? I'll just tell you, I think you must have heard about Capability Building Commission, CBC, which is working on that, particularly not only armed forces, even the defense, other defense forces like defense production, ordnance factories, which have been broken into companies now. They were a board, they have been broken into companies. I think consistent work is going on, and I am very proud that we have now, although we are a public sector, we have now been assigned to train the people from ordnance factory, to train them and to make them company ready. I can call it that way. It's so this doesn't only talk about the basic skills which is already available even in the armed forces, but what exactly takes you to go that far, and how do you adapt to the future, to the culture all around you. That is being so I think probably government is already doing a lot on that. I think some of us are involved in those activities. I think we'll be doing wonders on that. Thank you.
So I do see a 0 there. Okay, 0 seconds left. Can we still give one more question to someone from behind? The criteria is how far you are from the dais, and we'll just choose.
Check. Probably just one question will take interest of time.
Okay, just one more. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
It may not be a question per se, but it's a curiosity. Coming back to India, where education since childhood was, enforced on oneself with a reward. If you want to do medical, this is how glorified your career is. This is, if you want to do engineering, this is how it is. So every urge for learning or for development, we have a reward linked to it ever since we were children. So in an organization, and this question is to all of you, like, how have you linked your learning and development? While I still like to use learning and deployment rather than development, because the learning, you have imparted learning, that's it. So how have you linked your learning and development to your talent management or your succession planning? Because do you have a percentage of people fixed for critical roles in your organizations? Do you link it to your filling in positions to internal job postings, or is it still only a learning initiative that we keep encouraging without a reward to it?
So I want to just give you a perspective. And you actually said it all. See, the problem in learning and development, as we understand as HR professionals, is that you teach somebody and you presume that's done. The problem starts from there, because you've now made him capable of doing more and not given him the job.
Sure.
Right? So the first thing that every successful company has been able to do is how that talent which is upskilled and upgraded has been deployed. Right? We talk about women leadership programs, but the women never change their jobs. Right? So it's the same thing. So the first thing is, how good are your processes to make sure that the upskilled person is actually given that job. Otherwise, by the way, your attrition is going to go up because somebody else is going to hire. And again, technology has helped a lot. We have something called Telex. You can look it up in when you type Google, but it is an automated AI tool. The moment you are upskilled, it picks you up and gives you a job that you are now upgraded for. Nobody in the company can hold you back. The problem is, if you are a superstar, nobody wants to leave you. So your processes have to enable you, to go there. The second thing that I said is, how do you benefit? Because now you are upgraded, does your financial package go up? It is again documented. So the point is, as you look at learning and development, please look at deployment. Because learning and development makes little sense if the person is doing the same role, right? And that, to my mind, is somewhere where all organizations need to now start thinking and going to.
I'll just add on to that.
Go on.
I'll just take a second. I think if you look at all the mature organizations, and there's not a straight-cut answer to the question that you've asked. It also depends on the maturity of the organization and the stage that they're in. But if you look at all the major and all the evolved organizations, there is a very good link between learning and career. What does that mean? In case you aspire to be a business head, that means for 2 years you have to have a function in finance, 2 years in HR, 2 years in sales, 2 years out of geography. All right? And that's how they link it to performance, and that's how they link it to a reward. So this example that I'm giving you is across a lot of mature organizations. But again, it depends on what stage your organization is in.
All right. Thank you so much, Niharika. I think it's time to conclude now, because learning is also linked to the stomach. People can't be hungry and be learning. So thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience. Thanks to all the panel members. Great points. And I'm sure we'll keep on learning.